Bravo. We are coming to you. No pronouns given. You're in the USA. You are talking with Richard Gilliver and Secular Rarity. What is up, Bravo?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Glad to hear that. I was calling. First of all, let me say I've spent time as both a believer and as a not believer, as an atheist. And now I'm kind of in a state where I'm not really either. I don't believe, I observe. Okay. I believe that, or I've noticed that, there are things that our senses can detect. We've got now machinery that can detect things that our senses can't. Mm-hmm. And then there are, like you were saying with another caller, that there are things that are purely conceptual that can't be interacted with on a material plane, right? And so I say all of that to say that the back and forth discourse and the schism between believers and not is kind of a non-traversable gap. Like you were saying with the one guy, the decoder ring. The decoder ring is belief itself. You won't be able to see the secret messages unless you're emotionally invested in the concept itself, right? And for the people like I spent time in my life being that like angry atheist or mad at God because of, the problem of evil and all of the things going on in the world and all of the inconsistencies and this and that and that and this, right? Mm-hmm. But I had to realize, in my journey of, just re-educating myself, post-religious experience, on how the world works and all of these inner workings, that it's not at all possible to convince somebody or convert them or deconvert them because they're emotionally invested in these ideas. And we don't understand emotions well enough as humans. We don't understand conception well, conceptual ideas enough as humans because we aren't taught to within our respective culture. We're taught.
Do you mind if I just jump in quickly?
Yeah, please. There's a lot of good stuff there.
Before
so
Secular gets in, because we all know Secular talks too much,
for an
so
hour.
I want to get a chance to speak before he jumps in for an hour and a half.
Dick.
I don't think it's difficult for believers and non-believers as a blanket statement to understand each other. I've been having these conversations well over 30 years, and I have had some amazing conversations with believers. I've got peers in religious studies who are believers, and we have some amazing conversations. I come onto the Atheist Community of Austin TikTok, and I have lives where, like the call-in shows, like similar sort of format, where I talk to believers, and I have had some amazing conversations with believers. We can talk to believers, and believers and atheists can speak to each other. They can understand each other. We can really share concepts, get into things, understand things together. The problem arises largely where you get, and there are extremes on either side, where you get really, really angry atheists who just don't want to listen to what the believer has to say. Or you get these kind of theists who just want to shove their position down your throat and have no interest in kind of breaking down the conversation. Some of the best conversations I've had with theists are when we get into mutual exploration and break down the conversation. And if you, regardless of which side of the fence you're on, if you don't want to do that, that's when it becomes hard. This is one of the reasons why when you get these people coming in and saying, your worldview against my worldview, I hate that term. And I accept it as a legitimate philosophical term, but it's really hard in conversation when you get two people who really just want to compare worldviews, because there's no common ground to start with. And I will always abandon that to talk about reality, because we have a shared reality that we do understand, and 99.999% of which we all accept regardless of our position on the God question. So we can start from common ground. We can always start from common ground. And, you know, you may have heard me say several times during tonight's show, you know, let's get that understanding, that common understanding, that, you know, let's make sure we're understanding each other, we're on the same page from where we begin, because that's so important to have these conversations. Of course, there are conversations which occur which aren't like that, when, you know, both interlocutors just they're battling with each other. And, you know, we can, you know, I've done it before, Elliot's done it before, when you get someone who's coming at you really aggressively, you respond in a like manner and it breaks down really quickly, you know, because that happens sometimes. But by and large, it is absolutely possible for believers and non-believers to have conversations and talk to each other. I've been very lucky over the course of the last 30 odd years, wherein I've been invited to, you know, churches and cathedrals. I've stayed at Buddhist monasteries. I've been invited to Eid meals in mosques, and I've had these great relationships with religious people. And it's not, you don't have to go in all guns blazing, fighting each other, trying to, you know, bash each other down at every turn and opportunity. In this space where we're online and we get callers calling in, and, you know, things can get a bit fiery sometimes, but that's not the case in, you know, for as a blanket statement for the discussion between religious people and non-religious people. And for the most part, I genuinely believe that you can have good, productive conversations.
Yeah, I'll let you shout some thoughts back at us, Bravo, before I give my thoughts. But yeah, what do you think about all that?
Sure. I don't. Yeah, my comment was not necessarily towards you know, productive discourse, but more of, you know, being on the same, I guess, page. I guess, because like even like with objective reality that can be measured and quantified, we even experience that differently. Some people only, you know, don't see the same range of colors. Some people don't taste the same flavors. So like even measurable objective reality we don't experience.
But Bravo, sorry for jumping in again. I'm taking over from Elliot now. I'm not talking over everyone. But this is really important. This is a really important point because I've talked about this extensively, this idea about having a shared reality. And yes, we do have differences in that. You know, I wear glasses. This is a case in point. If I was the only person on the planet and I took my glasses, I didn't have glasses, and I was the only person, I would think that my eyesight without the glasses on was normal vision because I would have nothing to cross-reference it against. But what we actually do in reality, we do actually have things to cross-reference things against. So we know that my eyesight's bad because I have things to cross-reference again. We know what it should be like. We have tests. It's same with the range of colors people you know, experience. You know, we have the case where some languages don't even have names for certain colors which correspond to our names for colors, because they have a completely different concept of what that is. But the reason we understand that is because we have this shared reality in which we can cross-reference things. Having a shared reality, when I say having a shared reality where we agree with things, it doesn't mean that we all have the same opinion within that. What it means is that even where we find discrepancies, we can pick them out and identify them as discrepancies and all agree that they are discrepancies. And, you know, that works throughout for whether it's a blind person who's never seen and we're trying to describe the idea of seeing colors to them. You know, this is a common theist argument. How would you describe a color to a blind man? You know, that's like God if you can't. But we can, because we have other senses we can use to kind of cross-reference that against and give an approximation. We can do all these things in this shared reality, which give us the opportunity to find common understanding and common ground, even taking into account those differences. the disconnect comes, and just so I'm not picking on religious people, let's say, is when someone comes up with something which is beyond that shared reality where we don't agree on things. So you might have someone who believes in ghosts, or a certain type of ghost, or a certain type of demon, and that's an additional claim to this shared reality. And that's where we really need to dig down and have these important conversations to find out why the one person or a set of people have these views which are different, which are in addition to the shared reality.
Yeah, and I'm so on board with all of that, Richard. And even though he didn't use this terminology, Bravo, what's coming through everything that Richard was just saying is exactly where I like to put my focus, which consistent methodologies. Right. Time and time again, Richard is talking about this space that we all seemingly inhabit together. And you're saying like, well, man, we can't even always agree on some of the most basic stuff there. And Richard's like, yeah, but that's in favor of what I'm saying. And I totally agree. We've all got this methodology when it comes to navigating our daily lives. And if we take it out of these realms of the things that are so emotionally important to us, right? Just like our last caller was saying about how, one big reason people, believe in a lot of these supernatural things, these deistic claims and so forth, they have a real emotional connection to them. Yeah, no problem. That's fine. But when we take all this stuff and we take a step back and we just look at things like, how do we know your neighbor actually has a border collie as a pet? Or like, is your mom's name really Susan? Or like, what did you have for breakfast this morning, SR? When we put it in a realm of things that we don't have these deep emotional attachments to, what we come to find is that it's a heck of a lot easier for us to get on the same freaking page, right? And for me, what I often say is, yeah, cool. Let's just be consistent. Let's just take those same things that we were doing over here when it came to, whether or not I've got a gold brick in my toilet. I don't. I'd love one, but, I don't. But the reason we both agree that that's very unlikely should be because of a methodology for coming to truth that we should also apply in this realm of like belief and stuff, and just real quick. And then, cause I know we're shouting a bunch of stuff at you, Bravo. I just want to end with a quick thought of like, one of the things that I do on a consistent basis, whenever I'm not on these shows, whenever I'm not online, I'm actually engaging regularly in my daily life with friends, actual friends of mine that I've known for years now. And we purposefully get together to have these difficult conversations in a friendly way. We purposefully come together with an idea as we sit around eating tacos, and we just want to, hash it out, man. Get down in the nitty gritty and the dirty, and just figure out what the hell we all mean when we say soul. And I think you can see from these conversations, from these friendships that all of us have built, I think you can see a lot of being on the same page about stuff. We find ourselves agreeing and understanding each other so much more often than we ever would have imagined to begin with. And I think it's because more often than not, we are using the same methodology for coming to conclusions. And sometimes we're just not always consistent about that. And that's not just for the religious. Like, that's me and Richard too. Like, I guarantee you right now, there's something that one of us believes that is just probably not, backed up by robust evidence and reason. That's just probably the case. That's what we are as people. And I think the more that we have these conversations, the more okay we are with being in that place. And the more okay we are with having that pointed out, and the more okay we are with potentially changing that viewpoint. So, since Richard and I both talked for way too long there and didn't shut up, and we're probably going to receive more mean emails. Bravo, definitely want to give you a minute to shout at us what you think about all that.
Sure, yeah, I actually agree with all of that, and that's part of my journey in the years since deconversion and reevaluating all of those beliefs. But I know you guys got more people that you have to get to, so I want to make my last little bit relatively quick. Two things off the top of my head I wanted to say first is, please, whoever's listening, find it in your heart to be kind to other living beings. You don't know what some other body is going through. And just because they look different or smell different or sound different, that doesn't mean that they're, hostile or antagonistic in any way. So please, please, please be kind to other beings, other bodies, no matter what the body is. All right. That's the first part. And the second part is, no matter what you believe, please, please take it upon yourself. It's a huge undertaking, but it's worth it. I promise you, to educate yourself about the reality that you live in, from the small to the big, from the familiar to the foreign. Like, learn as much as you can. It will transform you in a way that you never even thought possible. So those are my final thoughts to everybody.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm totally freaking on board with that, Bravo. I think kindness is such an important thing that we as humans really, we're not the only living creatures that do it, right? But we seem to have this real awesome capability to take it to amazing, extraordinary heights. And I am such a big fan of that. Yeah, and I love the idea of all of us having robust understandings of why we accept the claims that we accept. Yeah, sure, we may not have the burden of proof on our side as the atheist, but we should all have the burden of understanding why we believe what we believe.